Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Zero to PMO Hero, 6 Ways to Make Your PMO More Strategic. All attendees are in listen-only mode, and you can submit your questions through the Zoom question box, and we will follow up with those at the end of the presentation. After the session, if you have additional questions, please feel free to email myself at rzbell@keydin.com. The agenda for today will include a brief overview of some of the key PMO challenges that many companies face and how those challenges affect the strategic direction of the PMO. And then we will lead into a demonstration of how KeyedIn can help alleviate those challenges with a robust project management solution. Today we have two very experienced project management experts that will be presenting. Tim Short is the VP of Pro Services and Customer Success at KeyedIn. He has experience working with hundreds of companies to improve their PMO processes and has seen many of these challenges firsthand. Our second presenter is Jeff Benyon, a Senior Solutions Consultant, who will take you through some of those challenges PMOs face and give specific examples as to how KeyedIn can help solve those challenges. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk about some key PMO challenges.
Thanks, Rachel, and hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning or early afternoon, depending on where you're at. Just a little bit of background on myself. I've been in the project management space nearly my entire working life. Many people ask me, well, if you've been in project management nearly, what was some of the other things that you did? When I was 15 and 16, I was actually a sweeper for a local elementary school. So that's one of the other components of my career in the working space. So project management stems in its traditional form from the construction industry. In construction, project managers are sometimes called site foremen, had to find ways to bring a gaggle of workmen and other subcontractors together to build or create something from nothing. Gathering hundreds of different parts through dozens of different hands, project managers in the construction trade have had to bring it all together to deliver a product against a schedule, usually set by someone else. Sound familiar? From my days in the construction industry, where PMs were often left alone to figure out how to motivate a fairly diverse field of practice, to having the opportunity to establish an enterprise PMO at a multi-location manufacturer with a worldwide presence. And when you think multi-location, think marketing, legal, sales, all in different locations around the country, and over 600 SKUs for the project management office to manage. To then implementing software that's designed to help at a broad base of practices. So all of those marketing, legal, sales, and project management offices I've had the opportunity to work with. In working with all of these different fields of practice, I found that the problems in the project management inside of those fields are nearly identical. So during my experience of the last 18 years, the challenges facing organizations with a project management practice, whether again it's in construction or it's in manufacturing or anything in between, whether it's in a project in IT or a project in marketing or legal, quality, or a broader based project that would be managed by a PMO or even bigger, an enterprise PMO. And all of the project practices with even less sophistication, I've learned that regardless of business or type, project management practices within companies all have these similar challenges. Project managers, team members, and executives are all seeking to make decisions on where to focus, but don't know where to focus based on either their lack of or in having bad information regarding their projects. So for 12 years, I worked with organizations with cross-functional project needs. And for the past 6 years, I've worked directly or indirectly through my teams with over 250 customers that have proven to me that regardless of size, project managers and executives face the same frustrations. So in project management, we often talk of two approaches to managing these projects. Those two approaches, just very simply put, are a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. And just to make sure that it's clear when I say top-down, that's where the projects are managed or directed from top-level managers. Those managers provide guidelines, they provide information, they provide plans, they often provide the budgets, and they ensure that the project's success is met from a top-down view. Bottom-up is a little bit different, and it's a little bit newer of a concept in project management. It's where the team collaborates, and they really kind of rule the project through that collaboration. The project team in the bottom-up has the responsibility, or is at least invested, to participate in the management of the projects. And to be candid, in reality, I think that for successful projects, a hybrid of these two management styles is often necessary. And to be truthful, I've never worked for a company or with a company that only works in one way or another. As such, companies really need tools that will support the different methodologies of both top-down and bottom-up project management. With clear goals and objectives, budget and managerial oversight, project fails. Without clear goals. And without stakeholder and team buy-in, projects will also fail. Well, why is that? From the top down, portfolio and program managers are not able to plan adequately across the enterprise because they have no clear view into the statuses of projects and programs, and not knowing what initiatives are important to the business. These managers are often scrambling to try and keep up with the changing priorities, and they're making guesses at decisions. And as some of us have experienced, this drives the project team crazy. I'm sure that many of us on this call have had an experience where the seemingly nonsensical, ever-changing priorities of management would just absolutely drives us bonkers. I found this isn't because these managers are trying to make us crazy. I think in large part it's due to the reality that they themselves don't have the right information to make sound business decisions. And from a bottom-up perspective of the project and resource managers, they often don't really know which projects that are true priority one, nor do they really know what the capacity of the organization is, being able to rely on resource availability and true company direction. This leads to a frustrated team and team members and missed deadlines. So a lack of consistent process or directions, teams are often playing catch-up due to this lack of information and direction. Teams are often reactive, and sometimes we like to call this, lovingly so, firefighting, rather than being able to plan ahead and make informed decisions. And after watching the evolution of project management for the last 18 years, having had the opportunity to take part in over 250 PPM implementation, here's the things that I've found to be consistent regardless of size. So I've had the chance to share some of my experiences with our teams here at Keyed-In, and not surprisingly, the entire team with the collective experience of implementing over 1,500 PPM, not solutions, but solutions 1,500 times, working with more than double that through project management consulting, we found that these 5 things were true in far too many, if not all, of the organizations with whom we've worked. So PMOs, especially enterprise PMOs, have had to learn to span across the organizations. Not only do folks in a PMO need to understand the concepts of good project management, but how to influence those concepts across the organizations that they may not have understanding of these concepts. So how do you bring order to a company when departments are used to managing their own order? Now, keeping in mind with the companies with whom we've worked range from some of the world's best and biggest companies down to those with less than 50 employees, we've still seen the same thing. And the first thing that we've seen is a lack of consolidated views of the company's project statuses. Even though many companies have implemented PPM tools that do a great job in showing a project work or the opportunities that a company during some cycle has chosen to do, teams often need something to look to see what the business really needs to do, and they need confidence that the projects have been modeled against other projects or work or components that they've been asked to deliver. But without that view or that visibility or that understanding, teams get overloaded, they get frustrated, leaders get frustrated, and projects are missed or delayed. The second thing is that executives are struggling for accurate data to which to make solid business decisions. As a result, activities aren't based on solid decisions, and it creates a nasty cycle that companies are really pining to leave. And I had an opportunity to work with one particular company where they were caught up in this cycle. The executives didn't have accurate data, they couldn't make good decisions, and they were all struggling to put their time and resources into the right thing for the company. And as a result, the company was spending a lot of time and money just spinning its wheels on softly launched projects and things that weren't successful and weren't yielding a true ROI for the organization. And the company did the right thing, and they put a new product development committee together. And at those committee meetings, the executives all seemed to be chasing their own, what I lovingly called the golden snitch. Anything that was a bright, shiny object in the corner, these executives wanted to go and chase and do. And without any clear direction to the capacity of the organization was nearly chasing every single snitch that the executives wanted. And the new product committee had no way or idea to see the consequences in chasing every single one of what I call those snitches. So the projects were getting done way late and missed deadlines. They were missing major opportunities and launch events, and was spending a lot of time and money wasted against projects. So we had an opportunity to introduce ways to prove out models that the NPD could derive some focus. And utilizing tools that would assist us in making sure that we could see what the consequences of doing a project within the organization, we were able to prove out that by focusing on a certain priority at a certain time and duration, that the company would actually yield a greater return than they had in the past in their project practice. And it's fun for me to be able to report that as a result of being able to put that information in front of the executives, that the first phone call that I got when I told the executives we can't do everything was from the CEO. And the CEO asked me if he had put me on my knees. And I told him no, but the company's been on its knees for quite some time, and I think it's time for us to focus. Trust me, it was a scary conversation to be had with an executive that was overseeing a company of this size. And he said, okay, Tim, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to try and go your way, but I'm going to remind you, good or bad, that this decision was ultimately yours. And thankfully, for my sake and my family's sake, it worked out well. And we were able to focus on one singular opportunity that yielded 35% of the annual recurring revenues of the organization within one project. It worked. We gave them the views that they needed, and the organization was able to thrive, and they're still delivering against that contract today. So number 3, budgets for project work are often not managed at a resource level, which leaves both resources and management frustrated. So I've worked with companies where money really isn't an issue, and these executives of the company seem to have endless cash resources, which seems to empower them to go after every one of those, what I call those golden snitches that shines in the corner of the room or in their brain. The trouble is that their staffed human resources are finite. And even with all the money in the world, unless you've got a way to show company capacity, projects still end up late or even never completed because we humans have our limits. So managing our human resources, even with endless budgets, is a problem for every company if they lack visibility to their resource capacity. Fourth, the processes are all over the map. Departments aren't aligned in a common methodology and practice, and they're not helped by the use of a common tool. We've been in organizations where dozens of tools are used to manage the processes and the project management practices within the various organizations of the company. And inevitably, what we see is a lack of continuity across the organization to be able to ensure that those shared resources that need to deliver the projects have their priorities and that they understand what it is they need to be working on next. And fifth, companies are operating in the firefighting mode. They're reactive to their projects and they're reactive to their portfolio management. And I had a chance to work with a company with over 3,000 employees at a 120-person IT department that was working to serve the needs of 7 different sales organizations. That, in addition to the various support services needs of the company, which included HR and legal and finance, marketing, and even themselves in IT. Money wasn't an issue. Resources wasn't really an issue. In fact, this company that I had a chance to work with believes in a ratio of 5 team members to 1 manager, and 2 to 3 managers to 1 director, and 2 to 3 directors to 1 VP. So tremendously management heavy, and they didn't have a problem spending the money just for people to manage people. But though the company had its budgets to hire as many folks as they wanted, and at a glance really had plenty of individuals to deliver the work, nearly every project we saw was flaming hot. It was late and chaotic. Even with enough resources to do the work, without the proper insights across the projects and standardization of project practices across all of those many different organizations, 7 different sales organizations, plus all the support services, the executives and the team members alike struggle to hit any sort of deadline or timeline for that matter. So I'm sure many of us on this call have had some experience, if not all of these experiences and issues within our project management practices. I know that I have had when I was over a project management office, and I know I have had when I just was doing project management in the construction trades. So how do we go from these practices that make us feel like a 0 to becoming a project management hero? In the presentation that Jeff's about to give, he will cover a few areas that I think we should all consider as project managers or within the project management practice in one capacity or another when tooling our practices to overcome the challenges outlined to be that hero within the organization. So today, Jeff's going to show you how to, 1, effectively translate strategic initiatives into the portfolio, making sure that we're doing the right work and for the right reasons. 2, how to gain clear visibility into resource demand and capacity so that a project manager or a resource manager can say, do I have the right people in the right roles to get the job done on time and on budget? 3, how to engage project stakeholders with clear management information. Am I giving the right information to engage at the right level of the business? 4, how to ensure strategy and execution remain aligned through cross-portfolio analysis. What's the impact of business change decisions, and are we flexible enough to change the project directions as a business needs dictate? 5, how to make the transition to a more agile way of working. We need to deliver faster with the quality that our customers need. How do we do that? And 6, how do we drive real business value through benefits realization? Are we returning value to the business that the business expects and we've promised with the work we're doing? Whether or not we're managing our projects from the top down or we're managing from the bottom up, Jeff's going to show you how keyed-in projects can meet the needs of a modern company to overcome these challenges. And by meeting those needs, we may not become supermen or women, but we're confident that it will aid in making the organization's values and the project management practices within your organizations better than they are today, better than the zero that they may be, or maybe even a little better than zero. But our goal is to help our partners become heroes. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Jeff and let him move on to the next segment of the presentation.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. Really, really great insight. I love the Harry Potter reference with the golden snitch. I think it's perfect. It's small, it's elusive, it changes directions quickly, and I feel like that's what a lot of project managers end up doing when they don't have a lot of the things that you just referenced. So I think where I'm going to start today is really tackling two key topics at the same time. So one, Tim referenced it, how can we effectively translate strategic initiatives into our portfolio? But really at the same time, looking at our resource pool, and specifically, do we have the human capacity to actually execute on these projects? Do we have the right people to do the right projects that the business and the organization wants to do? So within Keyed-In, I'm going to navigate to this portfolio analysis section, this what if portfolio analysis. And within here, we really have the ability to start quantifying what it is that the business or the business units or as a whole, the strategic initiative of the organization. So I can start to create different scenarios. And this is all offline. This is all what if scenario modeling. So it's not affecting any of my live data, but I'm starting to maybe think about, maybe you have a backlog of project ideas, and they're all great ideas, but we want to start to qualify those and quantify those. So we can start to build metrics around what the organization wants to do and give those some weightings, right? So within a particular portfolio, what if portfolio analysis that I make or create, I can start to really get visibility into the things that as an organization I think are going to drive some value within the organization. Where do we want to go for the next 1, 2, 5 years out? What is going to make us move the needle as an organization? What projects should we be doing? Should we be engaging in to get to where we want to go? So there are some examples of some different attributes or some data that we could choose to capture, and we can give that a weighting. So this particular portfolio that I've just created, it has 5 projects associated with this particular portfolio, and I have a couple different versions, but I'm going to take a look at this baseline version. So this baseline version is showing me basically when these projects are proposed to start, and I can see each one of these projects, all of those weightings that I created, each one of these has some data in those particular elements that are really building an overall score for this project. So based on the weightings that I created, this particular project has 5 projects, or excuse me, this portfolio has 5 projects, and we can see some cost and benefit information at the top. But I can see that, you know, project 5 is really based on the score, the most important project to do. A couple others, they still align to what we want to achieve, but they have a slightly smaller score, slightly lower score than some of the others. So I could, right now, all of these projects are included. I could maybe exclude some of these if I wanted to, and that creates maybe a new version of this particular portfolio. And I can also look at the capacity. So based on the projects that I have, you know, what's the capacity for this particular scenario, right? I'm going to back up one, and I'm actually going to go to the base version that we had. So I just created a new version, but let's check the capacity of that base version. So based on the roles, meaning the types of people that I think we're going to need to execute on these projects, I get a view of what their overall capacity is by team and what the demand is based on the projects that we've just associated to this portfolio. So everyone's doing okay, and I can see a key up here of you know, percent utilization, how these teams are doing. But I have a little bit of an issue with this project management team. So based on their capacity, you know, I'm over. We only have capacity for about 36 in this case, days we're looking at, but this particular portfolio that I've created with these 5 projects is asking for 43. So in this particular month of February, the scenario that I've just created might cause some pain for this project management team. So now that I'm empowered with some of that information, what can I do? Maybe I want to, shift some of that work into the next month, or maybe I need to eliminate a particular project, or delay the timing of that project. So I can do some analysis. I can see, where these individual projects might line using Keaton's embedded reporting capabilities and our ability to create dashboard views. I can start to look at how these particular projects rank against the metrics or the weightings that I created. And I can even start to compare different versions to each other. So we have all of these different versions. We were just looking at that base version. I have some versions that maybe exclude certain projects, or maybe even add in other projects. I'm only looking at unapproved projects right now. I'm looking at maybe the next 6 to 9 months, or 6 months to 18 months. But of course, there could be projects in flight. I might want to include those projects as well to see, for the first couple months of this particular phase of projects. I have some projects that are currently live that are taking up resources. They're due to end, but what's that overlap? So I can actually create different versions of a what if analysis and then do some comparison against that. So now, based on the base version was our best version, and that was the expected revenue that we were hoping for, and the total cost. Version 1, version 2, this is the ultimate version, but we saw based on our resources that might not be totally achievable. So based on the other versions that I've created, version 1 looks to be probably the next best. I'm empowered with information through the weightings and through the information that we captured to help us categorize those particular projects and give some value to what the business is trying to drive. And now looking at this information in a way in which I can start to really make some empowered or some informed decisions on what projects projects make the most sense for me to do. And I can use some of these analytic dashboards to look at this information and compare it apples to apples against the other projects that are out there, versus what we typically see, and Tim can probably allude to this, is without any type of organized way to compare projects against each other, it usually comes down to whoever screams the loudest. This business unit always gets the projects because they're the ones that are always screaming loudest, right? Or there's a particular executive that sits in this part of the business and their projects are always done first. Maybe they don't need to be done first. Maybe they're not even really important projects based on what the company really wants to do. But because that hand went up and that person asked for the resources and they hold a particular weight in a particular business unit or department or in the organization, they get the resources, and that project is executed on regardless of how it fits to the organization. It continues to burn money, it continues to burn resources, and it may not even be a good project for everyone to be doing. So when you finally, when as an organization, if you can start to categorize some of this information and using some of this what if scenario modeling capabilities that Keaton Projects has, you can really start to choose and execute against the right projects for the business. And as Tim also was saying, now that we have buy-in, everyone sees the impact and the power of this project and what it's going to bring to the organization. You get people excited to execute on that project, and there's a team unity to saying, "Gosh, I need to get this part of the project done. This is my deliverable, or this is my task, because this project is driving value, overall value to the organization." So you get that buy-in from your end users versus people just sitting there. Why am I even doing this? This doesn't even make any sense. And now that people are empowered with information to understand why this project is important, they take some more pride in their job. So I touched a little bit on some of these analytics. I was showing you how we can do some comparisons here with these graphs and charts and these dashboard views. And I think that really starts to touch on the next area that I want to go into, and that's some of the reporting and analytic capabilities that Keaton Projects has. So it leads us nicely into the next topic, which is how do we empower our executives and our business leaders with important information. So we want to update those stakeholders with clear, concise, timely management information. And this is where we can start to lean on some of the reporting capabilities that Keaton has. Our embedded report writer allows us to create dynamic dashboards, collecting information from all over your project world, whether it be resource information, time and expense information, key deliverable information, progress information, all of these widgets that we refer to. Each one of these reports is capturing information that you can drill into and get more information, right? So this first one, for example, I'm looking at some key milestones across my entire project world. These could be selected projects. These could be a program or a grouping of projects. They may be some slice of projects that cross programs, cross portfolios. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute, how we can do that very easily in Keaton projects. But for this particular example, I have some key deliverables across this subset of projects that I want to track and keep tabs on. So I might not necessarily care about the completed milestones or deliverables, so I can eliminate that from the view. I definitely care about the overdue ones, and I have several projects with some overdue deliverables. So very quickly, if I want to see what's happening in this efficiency solution project, I see that there's 3 overdue deliverables. If I can click into that, I can see specifically which deliverables those are. So now with a couple clicks on a dashboard view, I'm empowered with information to go speak, and I'm informed to speak intelligently about what's happening with that project, with that project manager. Hey, I noticed that we had some specific deliverables that are missed. What's going on there? Do you need help? How are these aligned to other deliverables and other projects? We can see all of that information within Keaton projects. So I can see that there's overdue deliverables just by clicking through this dashboard chart. And each one of these individual reports can be populated or exported in a variety of different ways. I could print this, download a graphic of it, include it into a PowerPoint presentation, which is still today one of the best ways executives like to get information. Hey, show me what's going on in a PowerPoint deck, right? I want a concise view of everything, but I also want it to be with live, real-time information. Sometimes you create a PowerPoint slide a week in advance, and the information that you put into it is old the day after you create that, and you're supposed to present the next week. So how relevant is that information? So these graphs, you can grab this information at any point in time and get that up to the minute, up to that day information. So you're empowered with real statistics and real live information. So all types of different types of report information that we can gather. There's a lot of different examples here. You can see an overall risk register, which projects have some type of risk. What's the status? When is it supposed to be, when's the impact date? What's the probability, the severity, expected resolution dates? All of this information is readily available for someone who's coming in and just viewing this information in a dashboard. Or with Keaton, we have dedicated mobile apps. You don't even have to log into the actual application. You can get this same reporting capabilities, these same dashboards, and these same charts and graphs with drill-in capabilities. You can get those through Keaton's dedicated mobile app right on your iPhone or your Android phone. I can't wait to see what our team does with the new iPhone X. We'll see what kind of, maybe this will be some type of minority report type virtual reality report. Who knows with the technology that's out there today. But I think the point is that no matter where you are and when you are, you can get this information live and up to date. And we have the ability to create many different dashboards. We can configure these to have different layouts, different views. I could arrange these in a variety of different ways. I have the ability to share these reports with this specific dashboard. This could be a private dashboard, or I could publish this to other members of my team. And we have the ability to do different types of dashboards. So for example, while this dashboard is relevant to a lot of progress and deliverable information, we could have one that's dedicated more to our resources. So looking at utilization by department, looking at utilization by person or by role, by team member, which projects in our organization are taking up the most of our resources, and what percentages do those represent. So a lot of ways to get information out of Keaton projects that's relevant to you and your business leaders and your department leaders making informed decisions on what should happen next within the organization. Okay, so along with that, we have more than just these dashboards and charts. These are great. They're great visuals, but we also have an embedded report writer that allows you to see all types of different reports, standard tabular reports, and we have the ability to modify any of the reports that are in our system. So you don't have to create reports from scratch, but you can also create your own reports. And using Keaton's ability to apply custom fields and custom data almost anywhere within the application, information that's relevant to you, data that's relevant to you and your business units and your organization, you input that information and then you can immediately get that out of the application because those data views are immediately populated within the report writer. So we can easily start getting information in that's relevant and is meaningful in with the nomenclature or particular attributes that you need to capture for your type of business, your type of industry. All right, and then not only can we create these reports, but I could favorite a report and I could run them ad hoc at any point in time. So I might every day want to see a deliverables report, deliverables with slippage information. So I can go ahead and run that very quickly, mark it as a favorite and run it. So at my fingertips, within a couple seconds, I'm alerted to all of the projects that are out there that have deliverables that have slipped and a reason for that. So I could have that report, I could run it ad hocly as I just did, or I could schedule that report. Schedule it to run every Sunday night at midnight and Monday morning, deliver that to a select number of people so they have that information at their fingertips. Hey, what deliverables are out there? What deliverables may have slipped? What do we need to be alerted to? Really managing to exceptions within your project world to make sure that you're focused on the right things, right? So I think that kind of brings me on to the next section, and I want to talk about our ability to organize our projects into a variety of ways. So traditionally, I think solutions in the past, and definitely ours, we've evolved as well, but they support a classic type of hierarchy of projects and programs. And I think you see on the left-hand side here, I have a specific project at the lowest level. It's called this client consulting project. That might belong to a particular program that aligns to a particular parent, and that's a very, kind of fairly fixed or fairly firm kind of project hierarchy, right? Of course, we can roll this information up, but those projects live somewhere. But I think, Tim can talk to this with his experience that he's had with other organizations and definitely with customers that we're working with. The world has changed a little bit and more over the years, people have made a shift to more dynamic portfolio views. This ability to group projects that really impact more than one program. There's this cross-project or cross-program, impact to more than one level of the organization. So how do we do this? How do we see all of this information grouped the way we want to? If, for example, this client consulting project is, it definitely impacts our services team, but maybe it also impacts a technology view or some other program or some other initiative within the organization. So using Keaton's custom portfolio really generator, something we call insights, regardless of where a project might sit within your organizational hierarchy, we can group these by any metadata or any piece of information that makes sense to you. So, for example, I have this specialty group portfolio. This is grouped by a particular piece of information. Maybe all of these particular projects align to some type of special initiative within the organization. You can create as many of these different custom portfolio views or insight views as you'd like. So maybe I want to look at highly strategic projects or projects that are in the red. Here's that specialty group one. So this particular grouping of projects, regardless of where they sit within a fixed hierarchy, by clicking on this icon that represents that there are 7 projects in this particular grouping, if I click on that, you're going to see the screen repopulate, and it's a grouping of information that is specific to that subset of projects that I just picked. So this specialty group portfolio, I can see I have quite a few overdue assignments. There's some risks out there. I actually have some invoices for this group. I can see some budgetary and some financial information, all the projects that align, the deliverables that are associated. All of this information can be at my fingertips. It's really rolling up all of those projects and the information regarding those projects into this custom view that I've selected. So, and I touched a little bit on the deliverables. So within each project, we might have major deliverables. And those, of course, can be seen at various views against their own program. But this is taking into account all those deliverables in this particular grouping of projects, regardless, again, of where they fit. There might be some cross-project or even cross-program linkage. So there's a lot of red in here. I can see that we have a lot of projects that are in jeopardy, but do those deliverables actually affect maybe not only their project and the timing of their projects, but there could be some linkage or some impact cross-project or cross-program. So this view is incredibly powerful because it helps organizations avoid being reactive. So we can be more proactive, saying, oh gosh, I got a deliverable, it's in jeopardy of slipping. I don't think it's going to really impact my own project that much, but oh gosh, you know what? This actually is linked to another deliverable in another project, and I now have visibility into that. So I really can't miss this deadline, or if I'm going to, I need to alert somebody else so we can get ahead of this, versus what typically happens is that, oh, yeah, we missed that deliverable. It didn't think it really affected me, but oh, well, it just sent this other project off the rails because we were waiting on a piece of information there. So with the empowered information you have to see that deliverable is actually linked to another deliverable in another project, another program, another initiative, you're able to get ahead of that. Maybe I need to throw more resources at it. Is it okay if I reschedule this? In any project world, you're still going to have one key element, and that's communication. But you need to know what you need to talk about. So you're empowered with the right information to have intelligent conversations about what needs to happen. What can we do? Do we have the resources to throw at this so we can keep it on time? If not, if we push it, what does that mean to these other projects? So we have the information at our fingertips to make informed decisions and what we need to do. So, all of this I've been talking about has been really kind of this top-down approach to project management. And of course, every project is going to have to be executed, typically at a lower level. So I'm just going to navigate to one of my regular projects to show you, kind of the things that we could be capturing within a particular project. So, if you look across this particular project, I'm on a home page now that might be a great landing page for a project manager that's managing this page. Very persona based. This page is configured, this workspace for this project is configured for a project manager to see exactly what they need to see. These data boxes are capturing specific information, alerting them to things that might need their attention. And I have the ability to take action on a lot of this project specific information right from this page. And of course, we have a task plan, but I want to touch on this forecast, for example. So just kind of finishing up on this thought of this top-down approach, this forecast is really something that is powerful on many levels, because if I just back up a little bit here, a few months to show you all the information in here, this forecast is capturing anticipated demand for particular types of people, roles within our organization. So we need, 160 hours in April. We needed 80 hours in July for that particular role. This is totaling up total hours and costs and charges. If we want to capture that information for the individual people, we can actually capture this in days or FTEs. If you work in FTEs, for example, it'll do the math for you. I need, half of a person and a full person. But this information is captured at a forecasted level. We can also capture things like expenditures and benefits, which I'll also come on to in a few minutes. But really, this information, so we've decided that this is a strategic project, that we want to do this project. It makes sense for the organization to do. And as we start to collect information and start to really finalize what this project is going to look like, what's it going to take to execute. We identify the types of people that we need and the costs associated to doing this project. And that is where we can use this information within our scenario modeling that we already looked at. So this is what we anticipate this project is going to mean from a capacity standpoint, from an execution standpoint, from a cost standpoint. And we can view that information against other projects to really align which projects make the most sense to do. Additionally, we're giving ourselves a baseline specifically for this project to start as this project is being executed. We're starting to tally the information as it comes in. So we're capturing the real-time information, and we're understanding how we're progressing against what was set out for this particular project. All right. So bottom up meeting top down. So regardless of who you are in your organization, how you want to execute on your projects, you're getting that visibility from an execution standpoint, from a strategic standpoint. And then talking about delivery, more and more organizations that are starting to adapt, they're looking at and starting to adapt a more agile approach to delivering work, especially really for IT departments and projects that are really driving technology within business units or within the organization. These teams are starting to use more agile tools like Jira or maybe even TFS or Rally. And the customers that we work with, they're finding while this move to agile makes sense for groups, especially in IT, not everyone within the organization is ready to make that leap. Different departments do projects different ways. I think, we talk to people running quote unquote, I'm using air quotes right now, projects all the time. And you talk to 10 different project managers and they might have 10 different definitions of what a project is to them. So while agile is being seen more and more, not every business unit or not every organization is ready for that. But there is still a need for some businesses to run projects in a more traditional kind of waterfall way. So how do we start to bring those two methodologies together seamlessly to ensure that we're gaining the visibility across the organization, while we're executing project work? So within Keyed In, I'm just gonna, quickly navigate to a project within Keyed In projects that has some integration to actually Jira, and I'm gonna go look at a task plan. All right, so we're gonna talk about some of the integration capabilities that Keyed In can provide to really start to give you visibility into two different methodologies of work. So I have a project here, and this is a traditional waterfall project. I could have tasks and dependencies on here, but I also have, in this particular project plan, I have work that's being done that's being represented by my agile team. So maybe it's a development team and pieces, a sprint 2, and these are all the different stories maybe that they're working on. I'm just going to pop out of Keyed In for a second, and I'm going to go into a different solution. So those of you that use Jira might be familiar with. So right now I'm actually in a Jira environment, but this particular project board is actually linked and integrated in with Keyed In. So here's that story 1 that I'm working on, and you can see that I have different, within this sprint, I have different bands here for where this work sits. So right now, story 1 is in progress. So if I were to move that to be completed, and I'm going to start, this build integration platform story, and at the same time, I might want to log some work against this particular item that I just finished. So I can maybe say, hey, today I worked 4 hours on this. So I can log that and maybe enter a note, got this completed, moving on. Okay, so now this is all standard Jira functionality. I can log that work if I want. So just understanding, what the velocity of this team is. Maybe we're new to Agile and we're trying to understand what this team can capture. But as a project manager, I own a bigger product maybe, and there's only a small piece of this product that needs the Agile team's delivery. I still want to know, I want to understand and want to know how much time was put into this project so I can quantify that or qualify that. So I might want to capture that work log and understand the time that this team did. So I've moved a new story in this sprint into production in progress, and I finished one. So back in Keyed In, I have this Jira sync button. And we have integrations with other Agile tools. This just happens to be an example of our Jira integration. But let's take a look. So here's that story one, and there's that build integration platform, which is not in progress yet. So story one was 50%. If I just use this button here to sync that project and update the results, what you'll see is that information is going to update that sprint. So I completed story one. It's 100% complete. And I've started the Jira team, the Agile team has started work on that new story, that building integration platform. And that's at a stage of 50%. So we know that they're now working on that. So giving different teams working in different methodologies, using different tools, giving them visibility into what's happening across that project, using different ways to execute on the work. And then we talked to that piece of work that I just entered. So as an end user, I'm just going to say okay here. As an end user, I might want to go ahead and enter my time. And I entered that time, and you see within a timesheet, Keyed Projects has the ability to capture all the time and expense against your projects. But we log that work in Jira, and I have this Jira sync button on a timesheet as well. So very easily, I can import those work logs from Jira, and as an end user, I can see that I did some work on story one. There's the hours that I put in, got this completed, I'm moving on. So all of that information with really one click has been brought over into Keyed In for that end user to capture their time, or maybe that project manager is going to grab it on behalf of those users, so they understand what type of work is being done and how long they're working on these different items within their projects. Okay. Last thing I want to touch on, of benefits realization. So I'm actually going to navigate back to another one of my projects, and these are my favorites here, and I can quickly navigate to any element within a project. But this data consolidation project, if I go back into the forecast for this project, we have that was the task plan, excuse me. I want to go to the forecast. So within this project, I'm able to identify benefits, those things that I want to maybe achieve. All right, and those benefits can be a couple of different things. I'm going to go to this benefits tab here. I'm going to back up a little bit in time. And I have the ability to add really any type of benefit that I want, but they're really categorized into three key areas. Something that's fiscal, a cost savings or revenue. As you can see in this first line, we're going to look for a reduction in costs. We're anticipating $20,000 of reduction in March and $30,000 in June. Maybe a non-fiscal type of benefit or a less tangible benefit. Really maybe something like increased customer satisfaction. And then finally, some type of an achievement benefit. Maybe this is an accreditation or a certification, or something that we're looking to get done. In this case, it's a new release, and we're anticipating realizing that benefit in April, right? So being able to quantify the types of benefits, why we're doing this project, and then be able to really report against that. So as we're identifying these benefits, being able to capture that information, understand what the baseline was, and track against that. Understand, did we reach that benefit? How productive were we on reaching the goals that we set out? So all of this information that we've talked about is really empowering your organization to make better decisions and be informed with information that can drive the success of a particular business unit or the entire organization into a more productive PMO. We're always striving to be a better PMO. How can we continually improve to do our projects better, cheaper, faster, right? So I think some of the things that I've shared with you today and some of the stories that Tim shared up front are really showing you how Keyed projects can start to not only execute your projects and tasks and risks and understand where people are assigned, but as a strategic organization, as a strategic PMO, really start to get value into why you're doing your projects, understanding what the benefits are, understanding what the capacity of your organization is, understanding key deliverables. At the end of the day, if you can keep a pulse on your people, your money, and your key deliverables at a high level, you're going to be much more successful than trying to manage projects down in the weeds and getting stuck on the day-to-day without understanding what the benefit is or why this project is being done or how it aligns strategically to the rest of the organization. So Rachel, I think that's probably about enough from me today, and I'm more than willing to answer some questions from folks that might have been sending some in the time that we have allotted.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. That was a great, awesome demonstration of how Keaton can help solve some of those key PMO challenges that, like you said, Tim discussed earlier. So we'll head into Q&A right now. We did have a few questions come in. So Tim and Jeff, maybe you can kind of take turns answering those. One of them here, we'll start with this one. It says, what types of solutions were your customers using prior to Keaton?
Tim, I'll let you handle that one, but it's really all over the board. It stems from established applications that they weren't getting value out of to really, in some cases, pen and pencil and paper. So, Tim, maybe you can add some insight.
Yeah, the number one tool that competes with any PPM solution is Excel.
Yep.
And most people are utilizing that and trying to continuously update those, and they get pretty magnificent when they get as large as some of which we've seen. We've seen others utilize some of the main PPM players in the space, some of which have been unhappy with the capability because PPM solutions tend to either focus on the top down or the bottom up, whereas Jeff just shared, we at Keaton projects focused on meeting in the middle so that we can accommodate both types of working. But without getting into specificity by customer, to be quite candid, Excel is in 90% of every organization with whom I've worked. Good question, though.
Yeah, I agree, and this is probably a good transition. So what type of companies does Keaton work with?
It's a great question. So Keaton has had the opportunity to work with companies across the board. So from manufacturing to services organizations, which we tend to be a nice fit because of our true ability to manage resources, all the way to various IT departments in various organizations that run from Fortune 50 organizations all the way down to small companies. So anything in the technology sector, to be certain, healthcare, banking, finance, manufacturing, retail, wholesale. If you can name the company, if they have a project management practice within it, Keaton has worked with that type of company.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Tim, somewhat industry agnostic because any type of company can really establish a PMO office. I think Keaton Projects works really well, and where a lot of our customers come from is, if you think about a PMO or project maturity level, you're starting to scale faster than you have the ability to do. So maybe those companies that are in some type of merger mode or acquisition mode, and you're just starting to take on more work that you can do in that Excel world, or the minimal tools that you're using, those simplistic tools that you're using just aren't cutting it anymore. So you have to start to anticipate the scale that you have, and the tools that you're using today are not going to be effective 6 months or a year from now. So getting ahead of that and starting to kind of mature into a more robust project management office. And we scale very, very easily. All the functionality that I showed you in the demo today is stuff that you don't need to necessarily take on day one. We actually wouldn't want you to. We want you to walk before you run, so to speak, and user adoption is the key to any tool. But really those organizations that are starting to understand that they can't keep it status quo anymore. They need a tool to help them gain visibility into becoming a better PMO, better project practice.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And that's actually a great leeway into the next question. It says, what does the transition to a solution like Keaton look like?
Do you ever pull a tablecloth out from under a bunch of dishes? That's exactly what it's like. No, I'm kidding. No, we can work as fast as an organization wants to, and Tim, being in the consulting group for many years, can speak to how very high level how a transition to Keaton might look.
Yeah, we look at the organization individually, and we assess the maturity of the organization, their project management practices, in other words, how they're currently getting work done. And then we design for that particular organization in the pre-sales cycle, and then after sales, we confirm that we got it right, and then we identify a project plan utilizing Keaton projects, of course, with our customer, who we then call our partner, and we work through to make sure that we follow on to that project plan. So we've done them in as quick as 3 weeks, and sometimes on the larger enterprises, they take many months. It just depends on the maturity and the requirements of the organization to ensure that we can do it the right way.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. And it is the top of the hour, but I do think this is an important question, so I want to get this one in. So Tim and Jeff, you both mentioned some examples earlier, but the question is, what kind of quantifiable metrics have companies achieved?
So budget versus actual, to be sure, folks can see if we make these investments, what will our return be based on that investment, and then being able to manage that through the system. Additionally, organizations often hire resources based on licking and sticking their finger in the air and saying, well, it feels like we need to hire an additional person here, where in reality, our tool will assist those companies in being able to identify where resources really might be lacking, where you might be overloaded, to ensure that we can find together the most efficient capacity for the organization. So that's a couple of examples without being too lengthy.
No, that's great. Thanks, Tim. I think we will wrap it up. So thank you, Tim, and thank you, Jeff. You've done an awesome job of displaying how Keaton can help, and then also identifying those challenges that a lot of those PMOs, and I'm sure a lot of the attendees today, are struggling with. So looking forward to hearing some feedback from our attendees, but we will be sending the recording following the presentation here. So stay tuned for that. And if you do have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Keaton, and we will be able to take care of that for you. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your attendance.